Welcome to Horror Makes Us Happy, the podcast where we ask the question, what is it about horror that makes us happy? Your hosts are Steve Becker and myself, Chris Whitman, and you can find out more about us at our website, horrormakesushappy.com. Before we get started, this is the trigger warning. This is a horror podcast. We're going to be talking about horror things, which could involve sensitive subjects such as child abuse, F-bombs, murder, R-bombs, SA, as they call it on the YouTubes these days. We have to put this disclaimer out there because we could delve into such, sensitive subjects, but really It's more of a fun psychological delve into what it is that people like about horror. Mm-hmm. And with that being said, Steve, what do we got coming up?
Oh, let's see. We are streaming movies on our Discord server on Saturdays. We do listen parties for episodes of the podcast on Sundays. And Chris also does a live stream of him working on his webcomic on Sundays. You can find out more about that if you join the Discord server. There should be a link to that on our webpage. Which Chris just said, horrormakesushappy.com. Today we are talking to Ms. Ellen Datlow, who is an editor best known for the Best Horror of the Year, which comes out every year, Christmas and Other Horrors, and Screams from the Dark. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Before we get into the meat of the interview, you want to let us know what you're currently working on?
I am currently working on the next year's best, number 17. And I'm reading for another reprint horror anthology. My most recent one, Fears, will be coming out in the fall. And I'm reading for one about cosmic horror, more or less. And I am only publishing reprints for that, and that's for Tachyon. And I also acquire and edit for Tor.com novellas and Reactor, which was Tor.com website. So I do a lot of different things.
Yeah, okay. Busy woman.
Well, the gist of the interview is we break it into like 4 sections: childhood, teenage, and adult years, and then at the end we kind of talk about any common topics that have come up multiple times throughout the call, and see how those possible common topics interact with or intersect with horror.
Okay.
That said, it's not meant to be a therapy session, so if there are any questions that you don't want to answer, to say pass and we'll move on.
Well, I can tell you right now, the question of the whole title is like, why do we like horror? I don't know.
Okay.
Don't ask.
There we go.
Don't
interview's done. Don't know.
Yes.
Why does horror make me happy? I have no idea, so don't ask me that.
I don't plan to. We don't plan to.
Not directly, anyway. That's the whole point.
You'll probably figure it out.
Maybe this will give you an answer.
Maybe.
Give to people in the future.
Sure.
Yeah. So starting with childhood, what are some of your earliest memories of scary things?
Oh, boy. Scary things. I read Little Horror. There was a story called The Thing at the Foot of the Bed, and I have no idea who it was by. And I must have read it as a kid, and it was about a child, and it must have been a children's horror story. And there's something at the foot of the bed, and the kid is freaking out and freaking out and freaking out. And at the end, I think it's his toe. All right, but I do remember as a child, I divide my childhood between before 8 years old and after, because I lived in the Bronx till I was 8, and after that we moved. Okay. So this was before I was 8, before we moved. In my bedroom, I was one of those kids who was afraid to step out of my bed. I was afraid there'd be a witch catching me or something. So I would never, at night, I wouldn't get out of bed. I mean, I was just terrified. I remember that at least once that I'm thinking, oh my God, there's witches under there and they're going to grab me, so I can't move. And so that's kind of one of my earliest memories of fear. It didn't make me feel good though, although reading the stories did. I mean, I read, you're saying childhood. I guess what is that, up to 12 years old? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that's
like 12, 13. That's about when adolescence starts. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember when I actually started reading horror. I mean, I read everything on my parents' bookshelf, and they had Bullfinch's Mythology, which had a lot of horror in it. They had the Odyssey and the Iliad. I found the Iliad boring, but the Odyssey was more fun. It had monsters in it. And I read, I guess I was a little older, probably. My parents let me take anything I wanted out of the library. And back then there was no such thing as young adult. There was just children's books and adult books. And if your parents let you, I don't remember ever being restricted, saying you have to go to the children's section. And I would go and take out whatever I wanted. So I felt really free to read all kinds of things. And I was reading probably later. I was reading Lovecraft and Harlan Ellison's Dangerous Visions, but again, this was probably later. So I read everything I could. And did I go to scary movies? I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm older than you guys, I'm sure, very much older. And I'm trying to remember. I remember the original The Thing. And I watched it in those days, which would be the 50s, probably the late 50s. There was a channel, and I don't even know if you had them in Ohio or Florida. There was Channel 11 and Channel 13, and you could hardly ever get reception. And it was always very snowy. I mean, now you don't know what that even means, probably.
Yeah, right.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We do.
Okay. So anyway, I remember watching The Thing and always wanting to see. I knew later on that James Arness was a carrot. It was basically a fucking carrot. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But anyway, that scared me. The scary part was, I think, the dogs. We found the dogs, I think, dead or something. I can't remember that. But I do later. As an adult, they had a screening of The Thing, the original one, in Film Forum, which is a movie theater that shows it's a specialty movie theater. And the snow is part of the movie. I thought I would see Clara. I wanted to see the goddamn thing. And there was no Clara because the snow was part of the movie.
Oh, no.
I was very disappointed in that. But another thing, again, before I was 8, King Kong was on $1 Million Movie. Okay, $1 Million Movie. I'm gesturing, but you can't see this, which is a good thing because my hands are all over the place. But anyway, $1 Million Movie was a movie program on Channel 9 that they would show the same movie twice a day or 3 times a day for a week. It was one movie, and they had King Kong. And I remember I was watching King Kong, and my mother made me shut it off. She didn't. She shut it off when the fire engines came. She said, it's finished. And I was like, and later on, of course, I saw the ending. I said, why did you tell me? Why did you shut it off then? Because you're always a very nervous child, and I was afraid you'd be scared. So she wouldn't let me see the ending after the fire engines came. And I didn't see them for a few years after. So that was my early experiences with horror or science fiction horror or whatever.
Okay. Let's see. It's funny you mentioned the thing about being afraid of that there'd be a witch when you got out of bed.
Yeah.
I know he's no longer popular, and for good reason, but I grew up as a kid I lived with my grandmother, and we used to go to like Goodwill all the time, and I would be bored while she'd be walking around the store. So I'd go to the record section and flip through records. And I bought the old Bill Cosby stand-up records, and has a story. What's that?
They were scary?
Well, not so much scary, but there's a story on one of them where he talks about his parents going out for the evening and leaving him in his crib at night and trying to scare him not to get out of his crib by telling him that there would be black invisible snakes all over the floor.
Oh, boy. Right.
That's not so good. So I'm wondering if your parents told you that put that in your head to make you not get out of bed.
I don't remember. I mean, I wasn't in a crib by that point. I was in a regular bed.
Yeah. And
if I remember correctly, we had linoleum, and the linoleum pattern was Mother Goose rhymes. I think I may be imagining this. I have learned actually recently that my memories of more than all my memories are possibly unreliable because I discovered this by reading a journal from like 30 years ago. But anyway, so did we actually have, I'd have to ask my mom, she might remember better than I. Did I actually have fairy tales, or rather Mother Goose rhymes, wallpaper, or linoleum? I don't remember. I mean, I thought I did. And I don't see why that would scare me. I have no idea where that came from. I mean, it's possible my parents told me that, but I don't recall.
Okay. Was there anybody in your family who were fans of horror?
Oh, no. My sister's 4 years younger than I am, and she's still not a fan of horror. No, I don't. No, definitely not. I mean, my parents did not read or watch horror. And in fact, I'm trying to remember. Oh, when I saw The Thing, it would have been on TV. I wouldn't have seen it in the movies. No, we went to the movies a lot, but I don't remember ever going to a horror movie with them. So no, I don't. I'm a sui generis from my family. What can I say?
We're going to ask a couple questions. They may not all land. You just never know until you ask.
Okay.
Yep. Did you have any scary dreams or reoccurring nightmares when you were a kid?
As a kid, I have had recurring dreams all my life, but they're usually, and to me, they're scary, but they are not horror. I mean, they are what I have realized about dreams, my dreams, they are very superficially reflecting stresses in my daily life.
Yep.
So are they horror that I can't remember how to dial a phone? that I get lost in when I go traveling, that I can't find my way back to the hotel. I don't really consider these horror, but they are very disturbing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't remember my dreams as a child. However, I went to Jungian therapy for 3 years in the late 70s. And it was a lot of it, I kept a dream diary. So I wrote down my dreams. Do I remember any of them now? No, but my nightmares were never that kind of horror. My nightmares were more personal, like my dad dying. I mean, years and years, decades before he did, waking up crying. So, and I don't know where that came from. So I never had horror nightmares, just, that kind of depressing nightmares, I guess you could say, or just bad dreams rather than nightmares.
I mean, they can still tell you something about a person.
Oh, absolutely. Did you have nightmares growing up? I mean, horror nightmares as a kid.
Not horror, but I definitely remember flying in my dreams, and I remember what's that?
That's a good thing, unless you crash.
Well, speaking of union stuff, learned later that that's a very common thing for kids to dream about flying because they're trying to escape their situation, which is also accurate for me.
Escapism.
Yeah. I remember the weird thing about it is I remember it was in the dream, it was nighttime and I was flying around like the countryside and finding a house on a hill with a bright light outside, like a street light. But that's all I remember. Like, I don't really remember who was in the house or what was happening or why I was attracted to that location. I just remember a house on a hill with a light outside.
My nightmares or bad dream or any dreams that I remember are usually just images. But what's interesting is, like, when I was at Omni Magazine, we published Clive Barker. I published early Clive Barker from Books of Blood, the second batch. Okay. I reprinted something. I mean, it was the first American publication of his work in a magazine. And he came in and we did an interview with him. We had a book column, and our book columnist, Murray, and I and Clive went to lunch. And Murray said, how can you read horror? How can you watch horror? It gives me nightmares. And Clive and I are looking at each other. It's like, you get nightmares from watching stuff or reading stuff? Because we didn't, But I guess maybe that's why people don't like horror, because it gives them nightmares. Those people can't handle the horror.
Some people, yeah. Different responses to different things.
Yeah. Seeing a horror thing I cannot remember any reading or seeing any horror that has given me a nightmare. I mean, I have images from horror movies that stick with me and that are horrific, but do I think of them? Do I dream about them? No.
Did you participate in Halloween as a kid?
Oh God, yes. And I did it until my parents, I got into a fight with my sister. Well, the only reason I stopped, I don't know how old I was, but my parents punished me by not letting me go because I got into a fight with my sister. And I remember being devastated and crying because I knew it would be my last time that I could go. I was too old. And my mom said, it was because you were too old. We did it, we didn't want you to go. We thought you were too old to do it. But yes, I loved trick-or-treating and getting all the candy. Oh my gosh. I don't even remember what I dressed up as. It didn't matter. The important thing was getting the candy.
Right. That is the important thing, yes.
Yes, of course. Yes, lots of candy and trying not to eat it all at one time and getting sick.
But it's funny. You always do.
It's funny that you say that didn't, because our follow-up question is, did you have a favorite costume? And you already said I didn't even
remember. I think once I might have dressed up as a gypsy, which is now a Roma. I'm pretty sure, because it was easy. You just wear a long skirt and have a scarf or something. And I'm trying to remember what else I might have dressed up as. For some reason, I'm thinking of a cowboy, but I can't imagine dressing up as a cowboy. So I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking of a belt or something that was related. It's like, this is like, trying to get into my psyche and remembering from I'm trying to think how many years ago, 60 years ago, 55 years ago. I don't remember.
Okay.
It's okay. That is an acceptable answer.
Yeah.
It's too far back, in my life.
Understood. Did you have anything in your childhood that scared you in real life?
Other than the witches on the floor.
Yeah, that counts. Kind of.
I mean, but I mean, I had a pretty, from what I remember, pretty happy childhood.
Okay.
And I don't remember being scared much, but I mean, my mom tells stories of me where I should have been scared. But again, when your memories are like hijacked by your parents, I don't know if this happened to you when you're like 2 or 3 years old. I don't remember anything, but my mom would tell me these stories of things that happened when I was 2 or 3 or 4 of under a certain age. And I have to think, were they real? I mean, are they her memory? Or did I actually remember doing this? But I do remember at one time, we used to go to Rockaway Beach every summer. And Rockaway is Far Rockaway. It's
Queens.
It's on the ocean. Well, it's in Queens.
Yeah.
And we would stay for the summers. We would either get a bungalow or we stayed in a residential hotel. And I remember as a child, well, I don't know if I remember, but as a child, I went with my grandfather someplace, and I have a vivid memory of being in a crowd of people on the main street. The way have you been? No, you've never been to Coney Island, so you don't even know. Anyway, we're walking down the main street, and there's a lot of people there, and I was holding my grandfather's hand, and suddenly I'm not holding his hand anymore. Uh-oh. And what I didn't do is freak out. I cannot understand how I didn't freak out, and I found my way home. And again, I do not know how old I was. I had to have been old enough to be able to at least know where the heck I lived. And I can't believe that my parents and my grandfather didn't, have a fit. The whole thing. Yeah. He told me he was going to into a store for a minute, I guess. Okay.
Were they worried or freaking out at all when you got home?
But I don't remember. I do not remember any of this, but I cannot imagine that my parents were happy with my grandfather.
Right.
And lost me, and then I found my way home by myself. So, in a sense, that should have been a scary thing. I do not remember being traumatized. I don't even remember how I got home.
Okay. Do you remember the first person you hurt?
Who I hurt? Mm-hmm. Physically or emotionally?
Either or.
Oh.
Mine was I fell backwards on a girl in preschool and I broke her collarbone.
Oh God!
Accidentally.
Oh no! Oh well, I actually in camp. I went to day camp and then sleepaway camp, and I think in day camp, I remember I was being told not to. I don't know if it was a branch or a stick or something, and I was told not to wave it around. And of course, I did, and I hit someone with it by accident. But
okay.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't hurt the person terribly, but, I shouldn't have done that. That might have been the earliest. I remember being cruel to someone in camp, and I kind of always regretted that. In sleepaway camp, there was a girl who was kind of a misfit, and we were mean to her. I mean, not horrible.
Was her name Angela?
No, why? You know someone like that?
No, there's the movie Sleepaway Camp.
Oh, which I haven't seen. I hardly go to horror movies, believe it or not. But anyway, no, her name was Erica. I do remember. Her name was Erica, and she had red hair, and that's all I remember. And we were not nice to her. But again, we weren't horrible to her. We didn't play pranks. We didn't like her.
Do you remember the first person you helped?
I didn't know you were going to ask these kind of questions. This is interesting. Person I helped. No. I mean, I can't think of anything specifically.
Yeah.
No,
maybe I'll think about it tomorrow and I'll email you.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
Again, it's one of those things where you don't know until you ask.
Yeah.
Like you probably wouldn't have remembered that you knew Erica's name until we asked.
Erica, yeah, right. But I don't remember her last name. But I do remember being mean to her. I mean, that I always...
Plus, that's interesting. We had a guest recently where we did these 2 questions, and they remarked that you always remember the stuff that's bad. Like, that sticks with you. But anytime, a good thing happens, it's almost like a default to be modest about it, and you don't remember it as well.
That's possible. That's true. Yeah. Probably mean to my sister. Okay. My sister was 4. She was adorable. I mean, I see pictures of her. She was so cute. But she was always grabbing my things. She would always touch my things, and I really resented that. So I think I felt bad about that. Eventually, as an adult, I don't think I did anything horrible to her, although Maybe that's why I was punished for Halloween. I can't remember.
Maybe.
I think I threw a doll at her, but I think I missed. But anyway, I just remember seeing the pictures of her and being nostalgic about how cute she was, and feeling guilty that I'm still pissed that she was always touching my stuff. But I feel bad that if I was mean to her about that, I felt bad.
Going back to King Kong for a minute. So I wanted to ask about that. You had brought it up. Is your memory of that mainly because you were interrupted, or was there something else about the movie that you enjoyed?
No, it's because I was interrupted. Because of course I remember it now, but I've seen it since. But the big memory of that is that my mom shut it off and wouldn't let me watch what happened. And I knew that I really kind of knew that the fire engines were not the end.
Yeah.
I don't think she had seen it. I mean, how would she? She just thought, oh, it's
heard from a friend, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
I think that covered everything for the childhood section. So going to teenage section, do you remember?
I read Richard Matheson's short stories, and I watched Twilight Zone and Night Gallery and One Step Beyond and everything, and I watched them secretly because it was on Twilight Zone at the time. It was a half an hour show. It was on at 10 o'clock, I think. And it was too late for me to be up. So my sister and I watched it from the corner of our bedroom, and we could see in the hallway straight to my parents' TV set, which was right at the other end of their bedroom. And my mom would tell me the plots of Twilight Zone in the morning if I hadn't seen it.
Huh.
The one with Agnes Moorehead, I forget what it's called. That's the one where these invaders, may have been called invaders or something. And this woman is like, these astronauts were like really bugging her. I mean, they're really horrible to her. They were like harassing her. And it turned out that she was a giant, that they were normal people, but she was a giant or something. I forget. I'm not even sure I ever watched it. I need to. But anyway, I was reading Richard Matheson's collections, the short stories Shock and Shock 2. And a lot of those stories were made into movies and TV things. I think the one with Shatner, the famous one, the thing at, 20,000 feet, I think that was by Matheson from one of those books.
The Man on the Wing of the Plane.
Yeah. So I was reading all that teenage and Lovecraft and Bradbury and Ellison. I don't know when I started reading Dangerous Vision, probably a little later in my teens, but whenever Dangerous Vision, the last Dangerous Visions came out, I loved those. I mean, they were fabulous. And so I was reading horror and science fiction and fantasy, as a teenager. Mm-hmm. But no, I read, what really influenced me a lot as an editor and as a reader was Playboy Book of Terror and the Supernatural, which were all the stories they took that were collected from Playboy, that were published in Playboy first. And that's where I came across a lot of I didn't know the writers then. I mean, there's a Gahan Wilson story, Ray Russell, Mr. Sardonicus was in there. There was a fantastic story by Ray Bradbury, who everyone thinks only wrote science fiction and fantasy, but he wrote horror too. I mean, he wrote Heavyset. It was just about this woman and her son. Her son is this giant, bulking guy. I don't know how old he is, and it's just terrifying. I mean, nothing happens in it that's horrible, but it's just the whole subtext of the whole thing is like terrifying. So
What's
I read
the subtext?
That she's afraid of him, that he's violent. I think.
Oh.
I mean, that's what I got from it. That it was like a very fraught on tenterhooks relationship.
Mm-hmm. It's psychological horror of not being able to trust someone that you should be able to trust.
It's psychological. I mean, totally no supernatural element at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I read a lot of this stuff from there. I loved that book, and I reread it because I wrote a little piece about it for Steve Jones's best 100 horror books.
Are you talking about Heavyset or the Playboy's book?
Heavyset.
Okay.
And
you mentioned Lovecraft and Ellison. Was that teen years or adult years? Teen
years. Started with teen years, and then up and through adult. I loved. I belonged to the science fiction book club as a teenager. I mean, I've got books all the time, so I got a lot of science fiction, but a lot of the science fiction. Then it was also very mixed. I mean, there are these books by edited Bennett Cerf and edited by Boris Karloff. These classic books that were called crime and things like that and detection, but they were actually horror stories, a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And those I did not read then. Those I collected later as an adult when David Hartwell talked about them, and I just started buying them when I could find them. Sometimes they're really moldy. Mm-hmm. But I was reading Harlan Ellison and Bradbury and Lovecraft all around the same time in my early teens through my later teens.
Well, you particularly mentioned Dangerous Visions, so I wanted to ask about that. What'd you like about that?
Oh, God. It was it was the first time there was a lot of sex in it. There was a lot of provocative things. And I mean, not every story was brilliant, but some of them were. I Am Gomorrah by Samuel R. Delany is a classic. And all these writers who were writing very provocative, more sexual than usual material, much more edgy than a lot of the classic science fiction of space opera.
Was Dangerous Visions like an anthology?
Oh, yeah, it was an anthology.
Ah, I'm sorry. I thought that was one of the...
It's been in print for years. It's always been in print.
Got it.
Yeah, no, I was into short stories. Dangerous Visions and again Dangerous Visions were all short stories. And Bradbury's stories, and I read Harlan Ellison's stories. He wrote one novel, but it's his stories that I read. And I read Lovecraft's short stories and novellas. So no, it was mostly short fiction.
So other than the sex and provocative stuff in Dangerous Visions, was there anything else that stood out to you?
Well, they were like nothing I'd ever read before. They were political, some of them. I don't remember offhand exactly which ones. I haven't read it or reread it for a long time, but it made a huge splash in science fiction. It was again, Dangerous Visions were extremely important anthologies. But they were known as science fiction, even though, the stories were mostly science fiction, but there was certainly horrific material in there. Mm-hmm. But it's not a horror anthology per se. It's actually a science fiction anthology. But a lot of stuff in it. Dystopian.
The difficulty is that we're talking in real generalities and not, like I'm trying to see if there's something in particular that you recall, and it's okay if you don't on this particular topic.
Chip Delaney's was about sexuality. I mean, he's gay, and he wrote about sex in that, and also if all men were brothers, would you marry your sister, or something like that, by Ted Sturgeon. I mean, a lot of it was about James Tiptree wrote a story about people. I don't remember the title. I think her story was about people's. Well, one of those stories was about people being so addicted to sex with aliens that people stopped reproducing. Mm. They were more attracted. And that might have been I Am Gomorrah, but I don't remember which one. But I mean, that kind of thing that, okay, people are so addicted to the idea of having sex with aliens that they no longer want to have sex with humans. And it becomes a weird thing to have sex with humans anymore because the norm becomes sex with aliens. So, I mean, that's one example. And I can't remember which story that is exactly. I mean, I have to look up which one it is. So, yeah. So, I mean, it was science fiction, but it was science fiction that no one had ever read before. It was written by writers who were there was a lot of experimental stuff in it.
Was there a particular Lovecraft story that stood out to you?
No. I just remember them as a mush. But what did stand out to me, I mean, this is when I was starting to read, I consider him science fiction and Bradbury. So, I mean, when I was reading them side by side, Lovecraft is horror now, but it also, some of it was science fiction. And I realized, science fiction is supposedly this wonder. It's supposed to be a sense of wonder. That's what science fiction is, supposedly the ideal science fiction that gives you a sense of wonder. Although Lovecraft was maybe under the science fiction generalities, he was considered a science fiction / horror writer early on. He had a fear of the unknown. I mean, a lot of the science fiction I read until I hit the dystopic things with a sense of wonder. The classic science fiction books by Asimov and Clarke and, those guys and some women, the main thing for us was their sense of wonder. Lovecraft's whole nihilism, it was a sense of horror at the unknown. Instead of embracing the unknown, he was terrified of it. And that led to his horror, or being considered horror. So,
right.
So, I mean, I was realizing that, like, I was really young, that's the difference between Lovecraft and Bradbury type of stuff. I mean, just forgetting about the writing.
Right.
Bradbury, even when his stuff is horrific, a lot of it is dealing with a sense of wonder about the future, about mankind, about what the unknown is, embracing the unknown.
Yeah. You mentioned having, reoccurring nightmares in your teens about stresses about your daily life.
I'm not even teen. This is my whole life.
Well, yes, but
but okay.
Just talking about teens at the moment.
Yeah.
Was there anything in real life that terrified you as a teen?
Yeah, well, I mean, something that terrified me then and still terrifies me is speaking in public. So, I mean, I have no problem with panels where you have a group of people, but I remember in high school we had to recite something in French. I took French, which I did not like, but I had to take it. There wasn't much choice. And we had to memorize something, and I was terrified getting up in front of people and trying to memorize something and talking, and just being up there in front of a large group. So that was something that always kind of terrified me. Although I didn't have nightmares about it. I've never had nightmares about it. I just don't do it.
Right.
I mean, I do not lecture. If I have to teach something, it has to be. I can do Q&As up the wazoo, but I just can't do lectures. I am psychologically paralyzed to get up in front of an audience and just, lecture on something. And that's since I was a teenager. I can't do that. Although I've done it. I mean, I had to give piano recitals and stuff. I took piano for a long time. But it didn't terrify me. I mean, probably no more than other people, but some things just got worse. It's not a phobia. I just don't like it.
Okay.
It's a little bit more pressure.
It is.
Was there ever a time in your teens when you felt exceptionally calm or safe or at bliss?
Okay, let me go back a little to when I was a preteen, probably.
Okay.
Or maybe junior high. Okay, junior high, which is now called middle school.
Right.
I was in the choir. I mean, I was in the choir. I have no idea how I got in. I mean, now I can't sing at all, but I was able to sing a little bit. And I was in the choir, and we had a wonderful time. We were able to go. We would, around Christmas time, we went all to all these hospitals and things and got out of school and sang. And it was hilarious. It was wonderful. It was terrific. But I got in trouble once because I missed a class and I missed some instruction. And I asked a question, and the teacher, chewed my head off for not following directions. It's like, well, I wasn't here, so I didn't get those directions. And I've always been terrified of math, and probably since I was a kid.
Of math?
Oh yeah, I had.
Like
oh
mathematics?
God, mathematics. Oh yeah, I'm terrible at it. I even read. There's a book called "Overcoming Math Anxiety," which didn't help me at all. But I missed. My mom traces it back to when I kind of missed some class or something on the higher multiplication tables, whatever, and I never got over that. So I've always had anxiety and stress about math. I would dream about math tests, which thank God I stopped. I would have school nightmares about, the whole thing with testing, that I can't do the test, I don't know, but it's usually having to do with mathematics. And I missed, I can't remember if it was 8th grade or 9th grade, I missed, it must have been 9th, trigonometry. I missed a week or two. I was in the hospital, and I came back, and the teacher was not helpful at all. So I always stuck behind on that. So that was my least safe place in the math.
Right. So let's jump to adult years. You mentioned Salem's Lot had scared you in your adult years. You were afraid to go to the bathroom. Do you remember why you were afraid to go to the bathroom?
Because it was a scary book. Because it was dark and it was about vampires, and suddenly it's like, uh-oh. So, for a little while, it didn't last long, the fear. But, for that very, very short time, that might have been the only time I've ever been afraid from reading or seeing anything. Okay. On the other hand, as I said, there are images from movies that I can't forget that are really disturbing, which is probably why I don't go to that much horror.
If you were to pick the top 2 or 3 that come off the top of your head, what would you pick?
I can tell you right now, in The Fury, where the twins start, they have the teacher rotating on top of on the ceiling, and faster and faster until her blood's flying. That's one image that really got me, that I've never.
That does sound good.
Yeah, I've never forgotten that. I don't remember the rest of the movie, but I remember that. There must be a few others, but offhand, Hereditary. More recently, Hereditary.
That's a good one.
You know the image. Well, maybe you don't.
Yes.
Let's put it this way: the young girl. Okay, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I will never look at ants the same way again.
I don't remember ants, but no, I honestly don't remember ants, but no, I'm talking about what happens to her.
Yeah, they were crawling all over her head.
Oh, that I missed.
Afterwards.
I don't remember that. No, it was just to me it was the before that. It was when it happened, the happening of it.
Oh, yeah.
That I'll never forget.
My favorite part of that whole scene is, I can't remember the actor's name right now, but the one who played Peter, just the slow, tight close-up of his eyes as he's making that decision of, I just don't want this to have happened. I'm going to let my foot off the brake, and I'm just going to go forward. But just the powerful expression in his eyes during that scene.
Well, there are things I can't watch again. I could watch The Fury again, but I don't know if I could watch Hereditary again. I mean, the rest of it's a mess. I mean, not a mess. I mean, a psychological mess that I'm not sure I could want to watch again, but I probably should. Also, The Thing. I've never been able to watch the one with, the
one with Kurt Russell.
One. I mean, I saw it in preview. I saw it in preview in a relatively small screening room with two adult friends and their son, who was, I don't know how old then, 13, 14. Before the movie started, he sat between them, which was a good thing. That was, I've never been able to go to see that movie again. Mutilation really gets me. Yeah. So
you're not a fan of body horror?
I really want to watch The Thing again, but I don't know if I could. On the other hand, I've watched Alien multiple times. But The Thing I have not been able to go and watch. And you know what I was thinking about actually last night? I was in Bone Tomahawk. I can never watch again.
Now, that's one I bring up all the time, but I don't think
I can't believe it was made. It's like, but anyway, I mean, I'm sure there are worse, but I mean, that movie and the ending of it is like, that's really, something else. Let's put it that way. So
it is a unique kill scene. Yeah, I can honestly say I've not seen another film where a person was turned into a wishbone.
No, that's not the end, though. I'm talking about after that, when he's waiting to be killed.
Oh yeah.
He should have slit his throat. I don't understand why he didn't slit his own throat. But anyway, that was a rough one.
He wanted to take out the rest of the savages.
No, he didn't. He knew he was not going to be able to. He knew he was doomed. But I don't understand, again, why he didn't cut his throat. And he was be doomed horribly. Is
that the part that bothers you, the fact that he didn't?
No, the whole thing.
The whole thing.
Because the build-up that it's going to happen to him because he doesn't. Because he didn't kill himself.
I saw it once many years ago, and I don't remember a whole lot of it.
It's pretty horrific.
I do remember some parts. Yeah.
There are good elements to it, though. Like,
I'm not saying it's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's, I don't know.
It's rough.
I don't know if
it's rough.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it once. I'm glad I watched it. I don't think I could stand watching it again. That's all.
It's a one and done.
It's not my comfort movie. I go to there's some movies. I love crime movies, crime action, killer movies. I mean, I'll rewatch many things, but not that kind
It's not your cup of tea.
Yeah.
For comfort, it's not a comfort movie. Let's put it that way.
Do you have a comfort movie in your adult years?
Yes, but they're not horror. I watched Rain Man, Atomic Blonde, The Gentleman. This TV series is great too, but the movie. I mean, I have, but they're all crime movies. They're all they're action movies. I like John Wick. I love things like, but they're not horror. Those are my comfort movies.
Let's come back to that. You mentioned still having reoccurring nightmares or scary dreams in your adult years. Has the content of those changed, or is it still the same
as it was about? Well, yeah. Okay. I mean, the content has changed. I don't have dreams about math. I have no math anxiety dreams.
Well, that's good. At least we've gotten rid of those pesky math dreams. I never have to
go back to school. Yeah. I never have to do this. I never have to take that kind of test again, and that makes me very happy. I mean, for years I had dreams about work anxiety dreams where someone moved my stuff because I worked freelance and I worked in an office and people moved my stuff. But I had dreams that I couldn't find my office. These I still have, that I can't find the floor where my office is, where I'm working. And that's a constant thing. It's probably a freelance thing, even though I don't work in an office and I haven't in years. But I still have that dream. These are not nightmares necessarily. I don't wake up terrified. But yes, they're not great. They're not good dreams.
They're unsettling.
They're unsettling, yes. I've had dreams where I'm in an apartment or a building where there are more rooms and I'm trying to find the rooms and it's like, oh, I didn't know those were there. And that's supposed to mean something. Frankly, I don't think my dreams are very deeply psychological. To me, they're all on the surface. Mine are not very deep. I'm finding extra rooms. I'm finding storage space. And the thing is, since I actually moved and have more storage space, I don't have that dream anymore. I now have a lot of closets, a lot of places, storage where I can't find where I put things because I have too much storage. And then there's a dream, which I don't have anymore either, and maybe because I moved, but I'm not sure. It's a dream where there's a block of houses, little houses, maybe like bungalows. They're all next to each other, and where I live is one of those buildings, but I can't get to it from the front. I can only get to it from the side. You can't see it from the front. I have no idea where that comes from.
Has there been anything in real life as an adult that has terrified you?
Aside from politics? Yes.
Yeah.
No. Just certain things about our current situation.
Yeah. Can relate.
Yeah. Other than that, no.
Okay.
When people say what scares you, and it's like that, well, certainly fiction does not scare me. Movies do not scare me. Current events scare me because they're real and they're threatening. So,
has there been a time in your adult life when you felt exceptionally calm or safe or at bliss?
Usually. I'm actually I don't get depressed very often.
Okay.
And so it's taken me a long time I was just talking to a friend who is depressive. And I said, it's like, I sympathize and I empathize, but I don't understand it. Your depression, depression manifests in many different ways. And that's one thing I've learned over the years, that some people manifest it by just being tired all the time. There's there's outside depression and there's interior depression. And it's taken me a long time to, first of all, to even realize that. And then second, it's hard for me. I can't help people because I'm not depressive. I'm just not. I've been depressed. I was depressed in college, but it's like, I got over it. It's like, and when I'm depressed, I can be jollied out of it really quickly. I do not have the genetic predisposition to it. So it's hard for me to understand other people who actually are severely depressed, if that makes sense. But I don't remember what the question was.
I don't either because I wasn't here for it.
Yeah, I saw we lost you and then you joined again.
But I feel safe. I don't know. I feel safe most of the time.
Okay.
I feel safe in my apartment. I love my apartment. I moved. I used to be in the West Village for about 40 years in a walk-up, and I moved across town to the East Village for an elevator. And I love my apartment. I love my cats. I love my life. I'm happy with things how everything's going. But I have anxieties, and I try to avoid stressful situations if I can.
Right. Okay. So this next question is not just about horror, and it's not about any particular section of your life, or it could be any genre and over the entire life. What movie have you watched more times than any other?
Oh, probably. Oh, God. Well, that's the ones I mentioned that I watch all the time.
Rain Man?
Rain Man, I've watched at least 3 or 4. I don't watch movies 10 times. I don't think I've watched any movie 10 times. But when people say, "Oh, I've watched that movie 20 times," no, I've never done that. But I went Love Actually. No, sorry, I hate Love Actually. Sorry, 4 Weddings and a Funeral. No, Love Actually, I despise. But no, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, I've watched a few times. I really enjoy it. To me, it's a feel-good movie, except for someone who dies. But and then Gray Man, John Wick, different one. I'm just thinking I might want to rewatch the second one again.
I don't think I've seen the second one.
Oh, they're all great, but it's like
yeah. Wait, no, I've seen the second one, not the third one.
Oh, yeah.
What do you like about 4 Weddings and a Funeral?
People say that they hate the Andie MacDowell character, and I like her a lot. I think I don't see anything. Well, have you ever seen it?
No.
It's a rom-com, and it's also to me it's utterly charming, and it's really clever, and it's got some funny bits in it. It's Hugh Grant and Andie MacDowell, And I love you, Grant. I mean, he's fabulous. Did you see him as an Oompa Loompa in Charlie? He was fabulous as an Oompa Loompa, whatever
Oompa
it is.
Loompa.
Was he really? I saw the previews and I was wondering about that. He works?
Yes.
Okay.
He's terrific in The Gentleman. He's terrific in. He plays really horrible characters. He's great at that. But anyway, he plays, and he's also great at romantic characters. And I adored him in Four Weddings and a Funeral. And the funny thing, what I love about that movie, one thing I love about the movie is he's got a roommate, this young girl, Scarlett, I think her name is. There's no explanation why they're living together. They're not having a relationship. She seems really young. You don't know how old she is, but they live together, and that's it. And you never find out what their relationship ever is because it doesn't really matter. And I love that about that movie. And then she gets involved with some guy, and he gets involved with it. So, just that little weird element in it that there's absolutely no explanation given for why these two people live together. But it's charming, and I really liked it.
Do you have a favorite movie?
Of his? No.
No, in general.
Oh, no, I don't have one favorite movie. Blade Runner. Okay. I adore Blade Runner. I've seen that many times, the original. I like the remake. I like the sequel, but I love the original. I adore it. I've seen that at least 4 or 5 times in different versions.
What do you like about it?
Everything. No, seriously, everything. Everything that it is. People would complain, oh, there's no plot. It's like, fuck you. Of course there's a plot. If you can't see it, that's on you. Yes. No, I love, everything. The cinematography, the acting, the theme, the plot, everything about it.
What do you like about the theme?
Well, it's about what makes a human. Mm-hmm. What's human. And I am one of the people who say, yes, he was definitely a human. He was not a replicant. There's no way. If he was, I don't care what anyone says. Sometimes Ridley Scott said, oh, no, he's a replicant. It's like, no, he's not a replicant. That would kill the entire theme of the movie. The whole point is the replicants are becoming more human. The humans are becoming more like replicants. So, that's me. That's my opinion very strongly. But no, I love that movie. It looks gorgeous. The soundtrack is terrific, too. Yeah.
Going back to horror for a minute, do you see any common threads about what kinds of horror that you like? Cannibalism, occult, metaphysical, supernatural?
If I like horror, it's eclectic. All I can say is I have a very eclectic taste in horror. There are things that I haven't gotten around to. Like I want to watch Midnight Mass. I haven't watched it. I really want to watch that. And I did watch The House in Bly Manor, which I liked a lot. So okay. I want to watch more of those, that whole series, but I just haven't gotten around to it.
Eclectic is a good word and fits with some of the notes I've been making, so that's a good answer.
No, I have eclectic taste in horror, and they're just things I'm not that interested in. I don't care about. Oh, Stephen Graham Jones hate me for this, but I don't care about slasher movies. I saw Halloween. I don't know if I ever saw any. I've never seen the other ones. Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't think. If I did, I did like the one that was a parody of them all. The Cabin in the Woods. The one that was a parody of them all. That was fun.
So this would be where we would talk about common themes that have been cropping up.
Okay.
And then maybe talk about how horror intersects with these things. So I see one particular topic, but I see a couple maybe subtopics, and I want to start with the subtopics and kind of work our way up to the main topic. And the subtopics that I'm hearing are anxiety and experimental stuff. With anxiety, we've talked about math anxiety, mutilation bothering you, not being a performer, experimental stuff.
Psychoanalyst. This is psychotherapy. Go on.
So the experimental stuff we've talked about, the sexual provocativeness of some of the work that you read.
But I don't like experimental writing if I can tell that it's experimental. And that goes for mainstream or anything. To me, if it's obviously experimental, it's boring to me. If the best experimental writing is invisible. You realize that thing. Oh my God, that was odd.
What you just mentioned there is what I would refer to. We've talked in some of our previous conversations or previous podcasts that a lot of people who are creators in a particular field, they have like their core love of something, but then they're also their love of the thing as an auteur. Mm-hmm. And what I would say is what you just said there is you're separating my love of the thing versus being an auteur. Like you there's experimental stuff, but if you're like, if I can recognize it, I don't like it, that's because as an auteur, you're recognizing that it's experimental. Do you know what I'm saying?
Kind of. I mean, but I'm not the auteur, the writer or filmmaker is.
I would argue that to a degree you are too, because you're at least knowledgeable enough to be able to recognize.
But I'm not creating it.
No, but you're able to recognize that this isn't done well enough for me to get lost in it.
Okay, fine, yeah. No, but that you pick up a very good point. When I'm reading fiction, I want to be lost in it. I don't want to like suddenly be jerked out and say, "What the fuck is going on here?" You know, why is this writer doing? And as an editor, I'm more likely to be pulled out of it if something's really poorly written. But that's a different situation there. But yeah, I mean, I've read. I mean, some of the best things I published, not many, but some were experimental. But I didn't realize it at the time. But it just worked.
Yeah.
That to me, it didn't pull me out of the story. I do not. My experience of reading is my preferred experience of reading is I want to be pulled into the story. When I'm editing, when I'm doing a final line edit, which means a final process before it goes into production to be copy edited, I'll go over a story line by line. And if the story is really good, I keep getting pulled into it and I keep forgetting to edit, and I have to stop reading for enjoyment and I have to read it line by line and remember I'm reading for checking
to work
out. And to me, it's interesting that when I have to do that, I have to stop that. I just have to say, do not get involved in this story again because you're not going to be able to edit it.
Yes. We didn't talk about it at the start of the call. Actually, I probably should have, but Chris has a webcomic that he draws and I wrote a book, which is nonfiction, but I've also gone through the editing process and I know what you mean. That you kind of gloss over at certain points. You're like, shit, no, I got to go back and.
Right. I forgot. Oh shit, I'm supposed to be editing this, not reading it.
Yes. So other stuff that went under experimental was, the word eclectic you mentioned just a moment ago, and also the sense of wonder that comes with sci-fi, in the phrase "what makes a human." So these two kind of two things: anxiety and experimental stuff. Mm-hmm. And then what I would say that the two of those kind of both fall under would be the phrase "anxiously searching," because, and this also ties in with the dreams you've had of being lost and looking for things. Mm-hmm. And so there's something about anxiety and searching. And so the natural question there is, what are you looking for?
Well, for anxiety, it's like the thing is with the dream thing, I may have anxiety, but I sometimes solve the issues. Mm-hmm. I mean, like when I have an anxiety dream about traveling when I can't find my hotel, that never happened to me. But what I do now is when I actually go to foreign countries and stay in a hotel, I take the card with me. So I have the address. Mm-hmm. So even though it never happened in real life, the anxiety about it forced me or persuaded me to do something about it in real life, which is interesting. I think that's the only time it's happened that the anxiety has caused me to make a change in real life. Aside from never going to school again. So I never have to take a test again. What am I searching for? That's too broad a question. In what? In life?
In life, yeah.
I don't know.
I wanted to leave the question open-ended because the answer needs to come from you, not me. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And I don't know is a perfectly acceptable answer.
I mean, I'm happy. I mean, I'm satisfied with my life pretty much. I would like things to be different in politics. I mean, I would like things to be different around the world as far as wars and stuff. But as far as my personal life, I'm content. I'm pretty happy. I like my friends. I like traveling. I just hope what I'm searching for, I'm getting old. I am old, and I want to make sure that I can continue to do the things I do as long as I can do them, like traveling. I mean, I'm in good health, but I have friends my own age or a little younger who are in really bad shape and can't do anything or can't do things. They can't travel. They can't walk very well. They have pain. They have issues. I would just, my hope is that I stay as healthy as I can, as long as I can, so I can do what I choose to, which is what I do now.
Right.
And I feel extremely lucky in the position I'm in. I can I'm making enough money. I get Social Security. I feel secure in my finances, and I feel like I'm still producing good work. I love editing. I mean, I love what I'm doing. I'm happy with my life. I'm looking out the window right now at the beautiful blue sky and big white clouds. So it's like I'm happy. And my cat's lying behind me, cleaning himself as usual.
So something you said a second ago about the hotel and taking something with you, the word that came to mind was preparation. And I'm wondering if the anxiety is an attempt to mentally prepare in like, how can I say this? If I think about all the things that can go wrong, maybe I can be prepared for them before I can get prepared to take care of them before they go wrong.
I mean, I write lists when I travel. Whenever I go on a trip, I have a list of things I have to take with me. And I finally, after how many years of decades of traveling, I finally kind of put down a basic list, things I always take with me, like certain passwords, that I need for my laptop, my phone, and charger. I mean, I have certain underwear. I have finally, after, as I said, like decades of traveling, I finally created a basic list of what to pack. And over time, my sister really weirdly starts packing like weeks before she goes any place. I think that's insane. But she has more rooms than I have. But still, I think that's crazy. I mean, I pack the day before I go someplace, but I have a list of what I need to pack, from money and tickets and passport to underwear and skirts and
what's really funny is what's really funny is I was planning on asking you a question.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, do you think your anxiety about preparation is natural to you? Like, did it come naturally, or do you think it was somebody else maybe in your family that impressed that upon you? And the fact that you said that your sister starts packing weeks before she has to go somewhere,
that's insane. Personally.
Yeah. But I'm wondering, is it because somebody in your family impressed that upon you, or do you think that's an internal?
Well, okay. All right. No, not at all. But I can tell you that I am obsessive about being on time. And the reason I'm obsessive and usually early, and I force myself not to be early, is because my mom made us late on everything. She was always late. We'd go into a movie halfway through and have to go through the half of the movie, and then we'd watch the first half an hour and a half later. When you could stay in movies for as long as you wanted. I was late for my music lessons. I was always late because my mom made us late. And what's really weird, this is on my mom. And my dad used to yell at her, and we left her behind a few times at school, at least twice. And what is really weird, and I think I tried to point this out to her, but she had no response, is that when my dad died, she was never been late again.
Wow.
I know, isn't that weird? Okay, so that is definitely an anxiety of being late for me, and it's from her, obviously, because she was late for everything and made me late for everything. So I have to force myself not to be an hour early for something. But as far as the other thing about being organized, no, I think my life is such that I do so many different things. I have to be organized or things will fall apart. So I write things down. I make lists for myself. It's not anxiety. It's just the knowledge that I need to be organized to be able to do my job and to not forget things especially if I'm going overseas. Traveling domestically, the chances you can replace something you don't have. But if you go overseas, you might not be able to.
So when I use the word that I'm about to use, I want to say compensation. I don't mean that in a negative sense, but as it's just a factual thing. Like if this is the situation, this is what I need to do. Right. You know what I mean? So that's interesting. What's that?
So yes, with my mom, it's definitely compensation for her making me late my whole life. Or my own childhood.
Potentially some I can imagine some embarrassment in there too.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, and my sister is often late. Well, not late, but there are times where she's talking about anxiety. Yes, she'll disappear someplace. We would go to a casino. I go to the bathroom, said, I'll meet you here, and then she's not there. I mean, thank God for cell phones. That's all I can say. No, seriously, because where the fuck are you? Said you were going to meet me here, and you're not here. And then we didn't have a cell phone. It's like, well, she finally shows up. It's like, am I supposed to look for you from a casino that's got 5 different rooms and 100,000 people?
You'd have had a cell phone. You wouldn't have had to worry about your grandfather losing you at Coney Island.
And we went on a cruise years ago for my parents' like 40th anniversary or something. And we went to Ocho Rios in Jamaica, and it was raining. So there's nothing to do there when it's raining. You're supposed to be going to the beach. So we found this tiny, like only like 5 buildings of stores. Okay. And again, like she said she'd go into a store. So I'm looking for her. There are only like 5 stores there. She's not there. She disappears, and I'm freaking out. It's like, if I lose you, Mom and Dad will kill me. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, we were both adults. This is not like we were kids. And I was so pissed that I started screaming at her when I found her. So that anxiety that my sister disappears because she does that. She doesn't tell me where she's going, or she doesn't come back on time. So that's kind of related to my mom. And I don't know why she does that, but her husband and I roll our eyes when that happens, because apparently she does it to him too. But with cell phones, it makes it a lot better.
So we've kind of talked through some of the next few questions, but I'll just roll through them anyway. So after talking about these common topics, we often ask, why are they important to you? We talked about the family history. And then the next question is, now that we've talked about those topics, why horror? Because couldn't you explore these topics in other genres, or do you?
Well, don't forget, I don't write it. I just read it.
Right. Yeah, but you could also find reading about those topics in other genres.
Well, I do read other genres. I mean, I edit science fiction, fantasy, and horror. I've just moved more to a horror, but that's only because the reason I moved more towards horror was when I was in Omni. Started out could only do science fiction. And then I'll do a little fantasy, but I wasn't supposed to publish horror. And in fact, no, seriously, because it was, it was a science magazine.
No, I was laughing about like kind of slowly pushing that boundary.
Well, yeah, but a colleague of mine who, Penthouse and Omni were sister magazines. I mean, they're both owned by Gucciani. So anyway, one of the editors at Penthouse was friendly with me, and he came to me with some ideas. He said I might be able to sell a series of theme anthologies to a publisher. Give me 5 themes. So I did. And those themes included things that I couldn't sell to Omni for various reasons. One, too sexual or horror. So I started, and they were stories that had been published elsewhere, but I came up with some horror ideas. And the thing is, I did not want to be a conflict with my job at Omni, which was my full-time job. So that's why I avoided, even though, I mean, the alien sex one, which was science fiction, started with stories that I couldn't publish on Omni, so I felt it wasn't a conflict of interest. And the horror was obviously not a conflict of interest because I wasn't publishing horror at the time. So that's basically how I started getting into editing horror, even though I was editing science fiction for years and fantasy. And Jim Frankel, who had at the time a company called Blue Jay Books and later worked for Tor or St. Martin's, he approached me and Terry Windling. Terry Windling is a fantasy editor and writer. He approached us about doing the year's best fantasy and horror because he saw that I was doing some horror anthologies, freelance for, my vampirism one. First one, Blood Is Not Enough. And so he approached us and had me say, would you like to do half a horror? And she would do half fantasy. And I said, sure. So that's basically how I got into horror. I mean, it wasn't that I loved it more than science fiction or fantasy, although frankly I do now, but I still edit some science fiction and fantasy. Yes. So it was not because of, I really have to edit horror. It's because of circumstances.
Yeah. You're not alone in that. We've talked to other people that have gotten into this through other means as well.
Well, there are a lot of horror writers, older horror writers, like F. Paul Wilson, Tom Monteleone, Charlie Grant. Those people started out as science fiction writers. They wrote science fiction stories.
Yeah.
And then they gradually moved into horror because
you didn't really have a choice.
Well, some of them.
I mean, you didn't have a choice because you couldn't start out in horror because that wasn't really a genre back then.
Right. But then they started writing horror. It was all on the same umbrella. It was never considered. It was like mainstream, which is fun too. I mean, it was called it wasn't called horror, but it was still being published.
Mm-hmm. So I think we've got a pretty good summary for you. I guess really the last question then is there anything that you've thought of earlier in the call that you didn't get to say, or maybe you're about to say and then the conversation took a left turn?
No, but this is so weird. I really feel like I'm in a therapy session. I've never been into it this way before. I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Well, hopefully.
But let's talk about my book, Fears. It's
Yes,
Tales of Psychological Horror, which I assume you haven't seen, probably, because it's not out yet. But it's all psychological. It's all reprints, and it's for Tachyon, coming out in September. Mm-hmm. And I published reprint anthologies of Tachyon because I can't afford original ones, which I'd have to pay more for the stories. Yeah. So my last one was Body Shocks, and that won the Splatterpunk Award.
Okay.
Shockingly. It was body horror, which I'm not usually into, but the stories were very mixed, and I got a good reception.
Well, what we're going to do is after I get off the call with you, at some point I will follow up with you via email, and we'll put together a bio page for you that we'll create on our website, and we will link to whatever it is that you want to link to. So if you want to send me links to any of these books or anything like that, we can do that, or link to, if you have your own webpage, we can link to that. And then anybody listening, you just come to our website and then go to the episodes page, find the one for Ms. Datlow, and then, follow those links to get where you need to go.
Right.
There was something I was.
And one last thing, remember, is Datlow, not Datlow.
Correct.
Low, as in the opposite of high.
Yes.
So it's too late. Thank you so much. This has been fun.
My pleasure. For those who might be wondering, I'm not sure if you noticed this, but we lost Chris. He apparently there's a thunderstorm rolling through the section of Florida that he's in, and he has been knocked out of power. He actually sent me a message via Google Chat letting me know that their estimated repair time is like an hour out, so he wasn't going to be able to join us. So
when did he get knocked off? About I didn't know.
Probably about 20 or 30 minutes ago now. We've been talking for a little while. Yeah. So let me think. Yeah, we got everything. We talked about the bio. You talked about the new book coming out. So I guess I can just hit the closing. So again, thank you for joining us, and thank you to anybody. Our pleasure as well. Thank you to anybody out there listening. Do come please visit us at horrormakeusushappy.com. We've got a list of people there that we have interviewed, like Ms. Datlow, as well as a couple people that we would like to interview. If you can take a look through that list and let us know if you can get us help us get in touch with anybody, let us know. If there's anybody you want us to add to the list, let us know. You can also support us on Patreon or follow us on Discord or join the Discord server. All kinds of fun stuff. And if you're not interested in any of those things, at least tell a friend.